Our story begins with a man spending 10 million in cash to take his best friend and the campus beauty to a tattoo parlor. He had his friend get Neza on one arm and Erling Shun on the other, while the girl was to receive the Nine Heavens mysterious lady. For himself, he chose Pengu on his chest and 9 dragons pulling a coffin on his back, even mortgaging a fortune for an old bunker. Everyone mocked Qin Lai as a spoiled spendthrift, but they had no idea that in 20 days, the apocalypse would arrive. Imagine a world where global flora and fauna suddenly mutate into bloodthirsty monsters, turning every garden into a meat grinder. Humanity will fall to the bottom of the food chain, and only those with tattoos will awaken the power of ancient totems. With only 20 days left before the red moon descends, he didn't hesitate for a second before calling his private lawyer. He ordered lawyer Zhang to immediately mortgage his billion-dollar estate and luxury cars to the most dangerous underground lenders. He wanted cash, and he wanted it now, even if it meant losing 70% of his wealth. A bit extreme, perhaps. After that, we find them half an hour later at the most secretive underground tattoo parlor in all of Jiangzhou. His best friend Su Xiaodao and the university's cold beauty Jiang Xini stood there, looking at him with complete bewilderment. Xiaodao asked if he had lost his mind, wondering why he would throw away his entire inheritance just for some ink. Jiang Xini assumed he was acting out because his ex-girlfriend, Zhao Yuqing, had dumped him, but she couldn't have been more wrong. Qin Lai looked at them with a level of seriousness they had never seen before, telling them there was simply no time to explain. He asked them to trust him just this once, and seeing the intensity in his eyes, the two of them finally agreed. He turned to the rough-looking tattoo master and slapped a bank card worth $1 million onto the table. He told the master he had a big job, pointing at Su Xiaodao to give him Neza on his left arm. He ordered Erling Shun for the right arm, then turned to Jiang Xini to request the Nine Heavens mysterious lady. Jiang Xini was stunned, her cold eyes flickering with confusion as she asked when she had ever given him permission to decide for her. He looked at her and whispered that this time, he wouldn't let her die, which, naturally, left her completely frozen in shock. She had no idea what those words meant, but he remembered how, in a past life, Jiang Xini had been dragged away by a mutant spider while saving him. By the time he reached the nest, only a blood-stained fragment of her uniform remained. This time, he was determined to keep her safe. The old master glanced at the bank card and accepted it, asking what the young man wanted for himself. Qin Lai simply removed his shirt. With absolute calm, he requested Pengu creating heaven on his chest and the 9 dragons pulling a coffin across his back. He added Donghuang Tai and the Great Sage to his legs, causing the master to drop his tattoo machine in sheer disbelief. The old man looked at him as if he were a madman, warning that the Pengu design was already a forbidden omen. To add the 9 dragons was unthinkable. That wasn't a mere totem, but a forbidden image meant to bury all living souls. Qin Lai merely laughed, offering 10 million if one wasn't enough. He insisted the master handle the needles personally, a bold request, to say the least. He demanded the work be finished within 7 days, a timeline that made the old master's face turn pale with shock. It was an impossible task for such a massive design, but Qin Lai simply tossed a detailed list onto the table. It was a collection of military-grade healing gels, bionic patches, and high-end painkillers to keep the process moving. Everything was ready. He told the master to focus on the art, while he would be the one to endure the agony. The master stared at him for a long, silent minute before finally retrieving his machine with a raspy, resigned sigh. He admitted that in a lifetime of tattooing gods, he had never met anyone quite this insane. But he took the job anyway. 3 days later, we traveled to the remote mountains of Jiangzhou, where an abandoned underground base known as Blackstone sits in silence. It appeared to be a simple Cold War shelter, but he knew its secret history as a high-security military command center. The main structure, the power wells, and the ventilation systems were all still intact, waiting to be brought back to life. He wasn't just renovating. He was restarting the entire facility and reinforcing it with a modern firepower system. He visited the site only once to finalize the contracts and verify the integrity of the underground systems. Everything else was left in the capable hands of lawyer Zhang and the specialized construction teams he had hired. He wasn't finished with the renovations yet. With a single, sweeping stroke of his pen, he signed the remaining contracts. He then ordered his team to contact the best security construction firms in the country to turn this place into an impenetrable fortress. It was to be a doomsday bunker where not even a fly could enter, featuring 5-meter-high military alloy walls and massive blast-proof doors. We see him demanding the restoration of the ecological systems and the dormant underground power core, putting down 100 million in cash. Every cent was to be spent within 10 days. Money was no object, and he offered triple wages for 24-hour shifts. As his orders went out, the construction industry in Jiangzhou was thrown into a frenzy while he sat shirtless in the tattoo parlor. Deep within the most secluded room of the Ghost Act studio, dim lights flickered over walls covered in various eerie totems. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant and ink as the old master handled the needles himself, assisted by 3 apprentices. While they mixed colors and wiped the skin, the first black dragon of the 9 dragons pulling a coffin began to take shape. Even without its eyes yet drawn, the outline of that single dragon already radiated an indescribable, suffocating sense of pressure. His phone sat nearby, the screen constantly lighting up with messages from lawyers, agents, construction teams, and various suppliers. He endured the searing pain of the needles while remotely issuing commands, ensuring the Blackstone base renovations moved forward in perfect sync. Neither the tattoos nor the bunker could afford a single delay, so he casually swiped across his phone to check the news. A notification popped up, shocking. Wealthy heir Qian Lai sells everything to buy an abandoned prison in the remote mountains. He opened a streaming app and entered the top trending local broadcast, which happened to feature his bitter rival. It was Su Rui, the son of Jiangzhou's richest man, broadcasting live from the comfort of a luxurious downtown villa. Su Rui swirled a glass of red wine, laughing hysterically at the news of Qian Lai's supposedly insane behavior. As he lost his mind, Su Rui mocked, while Zhao Yuqing added that she was glad she'd dumped that lunatic to be with him. She ridiculed him for taking the aloof Jiang Xini to get gangster tattoos, which, naturally, they found hilarious. As the camera moved, a flash of a fresh red floral tattoo appeared on Zhao Yuqing's waist, catching his eye for a brief moment. Looking at the delicate spider lily, he realized Zhao Yuqing didn't have this tattoo in his previous life, so she was clearly putting in quite a bit of effort to please Su Rui this time. Su Rui was enthusiastically shouting at the camera, asking his followers if they could believe that Qian Lai was not only throwing money into a hole in the mountains. He had also reportedly spent over 100 million at various supermarkets, placing massive orders for pork and rice. He mocked the idea of Qian Lai living there forever, causing the livestream's comment section to explode instantly. The viewers were stunned, wondering if the mental state of the rich was always this advanced, and who could blame them, really? Some even suggested that he should be sent directly to a mental asylum. Watching the overwhelming wave of mockery and insults online, Xiao Dao was shaking with rage on Qian Lai's behalf. He wanted to go out and settle the score with that bastard Su Rui, but Qian Lai told him not to bother. As he felt the sharp needles piercing his skin, a sensation he bore without a flinch, he looked at Su Rui's arrogant face with a strange, calm indifference. He knew that the higher they jumped now, the harder they would fall later, so he told Xiao Dao to keep focusing on the supply convoys. We see that 7 full days had passed since his rebirth, and in all that time, he had barely left this underground room. The old master and his 3 apprentices had been working in shifts, sketching by day, coloring by night, and refining in the early hours. To keep up with the grueling pace, he had even sourced military-grade healing gels and bionic repair patches from the black market. Every completed section of the totem was immediately sealed with the gel, otherwise, his skin simply wouldn't have survived the intensity. Late on the night of the 7th day, the buzzing of the tattoo machine in the deepest room of the studio finally fell silent. Xiao Dao's tattoos of Neza and Erlang Shun were finished, but the real masterpiece was what covered Qian Lai. With Pangu on his back, the 9 dragons on his chest, and the Great Sage and Dongwang Tai on his legs, it was a truly divine assembly. The old master pulled off his gloves and took a long, shaky breath as he looked at the patterns covering Qian Lai's body. He admitted that in a lifetime of tattooing, he had never taken on a job this massive or this legendary. With these icons on his skin, no one in the entire Jiangzhou tattoo scene would ever dare to challenge the master's skill again. Qian Lai sat up from the tattoo bench, and we see the 4 forbidden totems now covering his chest, back, and legs. Every line was sharp and heavy, especially the 9 dragons pulling the coffin on his back, a sight that felt almost too real. 9 black dragons spiraled up from his sides, their scales overlapping as their tails converged in the center of his back. There, they were firmly dragging an ancient black coffin wrapped in celestial chains, radiating an indescribable sense of pressure. Xiao Dao circled him, swallowing hard, and remarked that this was perhaps the most ruthless thing he had ever seen. He admitted that if he hadn't watched the needles himself, he'd expect the ink to start moving on its own at night. Qian Lai simply dressed to hide the totems, knowing they were just ink for now, until the red moon woke them. Xiao Dao was left stunned by the mention of a red moon, but Qian Lai didn't explain, simply noting there were 12 days left. He decided it was time to go to Blackstone Base and inspect their doomsday fortress in the mountains of Jiangzhou. 2 hours later, they arrived at the underground facility where the ventilation, energy, and ecological systems had finally been restarted. For the next 12 days, he barely slept, spending his daylight hours overseeing the final renovations of the Blackstone Base. At night, he used his rebirth origin power to suppress the backlash from the 4 forbidden totems, a grueling, silent struggle. Meanwhile, a continuous stream of trucks delivered supplies, rice, flour, fresh meat, canned goods, and endless crates of drinking water. He added medical supplies, diesel, heavy off-road vehicles, and backup generators to the growing mountain of survival gear. He bought out everything he could find, and while the world thought he was mad, he knew civilization's time was nearly up. One day before the red moon, the final batch of supplies was hauled into the depths of the Blackstone Base warehouses. The sheer volume of rice, flour, medicine, and military-grade protective gear was enough to make anyone pause in disbelief. With 3 underground floors stuffed to the brim, Xiao Dao stood at the warehouse door, staring with his eyes wide open. He joked that Qin Lai was planning to live down here until his next life, while Jiang Xini watched the scene in silence. Even though she knew he had been hoarding, seeing this massive fortress of survival with her own eyes was something else entirely. Looking at the massive underground warehouse, Jiang Xini couldn't help but frown and asked Qin Lai what exactly he was preparing for. He didn't answer her immediately, but simply walked to the center of the room and slowly raised his right hand. And here we see the impossible. Thousands of tons of supplies, stacked 3 stories high, vanish into thin air in an instant. The warehouse became empty in a single second, leaving only heavy indentations on the floor and the lingering scent of diesel, of course. Xiao Dao froze where he stood, blinking and rubbing his eyes as if he couldn't quite believe his own senses. Finally, he rushed to the center of the warehouse, circling the empty space 3 times before turning back with a look of pure shock. His voice actually cracked as he shouted, demanding to know where that mountain of supplies had gone. He stammered that thousands of tons of gear had vanished in a heartbeat, which, to be honest, did look like a magic trick. Meanwhile, Jiang Xini's reaction was more subtle, though her usually cold and calm eyes had completely lost their composure. She slowly approached him, her gaze fixed on his right hand as she asked what was really happening with him. Qin Lai remained silent for a moment, realizing there was no longer any point in keeping the secret from his companions. With less than 24 hours until the Red Moon, he decided it was time they knew the truth about his companion space. He didn't mention the rebirth yet, not because he didn't trust them, but because he didn't want to overwhelm their minds. He simply explained that this space could store massive amounts of supplies where time stood perfectly still. Because time didn't move inside, food would never rot and could be preserved for an incredibly long time. Xiao Dao's mouth hung open as he realized the supplies weren't meant for the warehouse, but were being carried by Qin Lai himself. He asked what else was being hidden, and Qin Lai finally told them about the Red Moon coming tomorrow night. He explained that at midnight tomorrow, the moon would turn a blood-red color, signaling the beginning of the end. A black mist would surge from the depths of the earth and sweep across the entire globe in an instant. Every animal and plant would undergo a horrific mutation, turning even common pets into man-eating monsters. Plants and animals will devour the living, and cities will lose all order within a few short hours. Human civilization will collapse overnight. Inside the massive warehouse, a deathly silence fell. Xiao Dao's lips trembled. For once, he didn't crack a joke, as the sight of those supplies vanishing had shattered his common sense. Jiang Xini didn't argue either. She simply stared at Qin Lai and asked where the evidence was. Qin Lai noted that what they had just seen was evidence enough, along with the tattoos on their own bodies. As Jiang Xini instinctively looked at her own skin, he explained that the Red Moon's energy would soon activate these marks. These patterns would become true totems, though ordinary designs would only grant the most basic physical enhancements. Beast patterns would grant animalistic abilities, but mythical totems, well, those would awaken true divine power. The older and more complete the totem, the more terrifying the power it would grant its bearer upon awakening. Xiao Dao realized then that the Neza and Erlang Shin tattoos were meant to ensure his very survival. Qin Lai confirmed they were top-tier mythical totems, and if he survived the awakening, he would be incredibly powerful. He would be stronger than almost any other awakened being. After that, Qin Lai turned his attention back to Jiang Xini. He told her he had already arranged for a pickup, which, naturally, left her asking what on earth he meant. We see a real-time video feed of a black armored van stopping at an old street in the south of the city. 2 tactical bodyguards escorted a middle-aged couple into the vehicle, the man's hands still stained with the oil of a mechanic. Xiao Dao stared at the screen, his eyes turning red as he realized exactly who he was looking at. Qin Lai explained he had contacted the parents under the guise of needing maintenance staff for the Blackstone base. They had no idea the world was ending. They simply thought they had landed a high-paying job, a small mercy, really. The convoy was only 20 minutes away, leaving Xiao Dao completely speechless for the first time in a long while. In his previous life, he had died trying to reach this very street to save them, but by then, it had been far too late. He had been overwhelmed by the tide of the infected, finding only his father's broken wrench and his mother's old, cherished apron. From then on, Xiao Dao had fought like a madman until his eventual death, but in this life, Qin Lai wouldn't let that happen. He wouldn't let them experience that pain again, patting Xiao Dao's shoulder and promising he had brought his parents here for good. Xiao Dao kept his head down, his shoulders trembling slightly, before finally looking up with eyes red from unshed tears. He thanked Qin Lai, while Jiang Xini watched the scene in silence before quietly asking about the whereabouts of her own father. Qin Lai assured her that academician Jiang was safe, knowing her father, Jiang Qingyuan, was a vital energy researcher for the nation. Half a month ago, the military had already escorted him to the Kyoto underground base for a top-secret energy core project. That facility was currently one of the safest places in the country. As for her mother, well, Qin Lai paused for a moment. Her mother had passed away years ago, a lingering wound in her heart, so she simply nodded, understanding the situation perfectly. We see Qin Lai's expression turn serious as he announces that, from this moment on, the Blackstone base is officially sealed. He warned them not to leave, and while Xiao Dao nodded firmly, Jiang Xini instinctively touched the Nine Heavens maiden totem on her back. Looking out at the night sky, everything was ready for the coming storm. By the next morning, we find ourselves in the living quarters. Xiao Dao's parents had been settled into the safest cabins. His father, Su Jiangwo, was a former soldier who knew how to read a room. Though he didn't know exactly what was coming, the strict defense protocols of the base told him everything he needed to know. He didn't ask questions, simply patting his son's shoulder and telling him to work hard and follow Qin Lai's lead. Meanwhile, Li Guilin spent the morning in the kitchen, insisting on making a pot of dumplings that Xiao Dao ate with tearful eyes. To be honest, a hot, home-cooked meal right before the end of the world is a luxury most people could only dream of. By then, the final supplies had been moved into the spatial storage, and the 10-ton alloy gate had been sealed shut at dawn. The entire underground fortress was now brilliantly lit, its long-dormant energy core humming with a perfect, rhythmic precision. The surveillance monitors displayed a 360-degree view of the outside world, where we see Xiao Dao holding his breath in anticipation. While Xiao Dao eats his dumplings by the monitors, Jiang Xini stands before the giant screen, meticulously checking the external defense systems. The Nine Heavens maiden totem on her back has fully recovered, adding a sharp, indescribable edge to her cold and elegant aura. Just then, a notification pops up on Qin Lai's phone. It seems Su Rui is live streaming again from his luxury villa in the city center. We see a decadent party unfolding under crystal chandeliers, complete with champagne towers, loud music, and a crowd of oblivious socialites. To be honest, the sight of such excess is jarring as Qin Lai looks at the time. There is less than an hour until the red moon. Su Rui has his arm around Zhao Yuqing, laughing mockingly at the camera as he asks his viewers if they've seen that lunatic lately. He claims Qin Lai is likely hidden in some mountain air raid shelter after selling everything to buy pork and forcing Jiang Xini to get a tattoo. He mocks the very idea of an apocalypse, while Zhao Yuqing leans into him, laughing so hard her whole body trembles with delight. She admits she truly wants to see how Qin Lai plans to explain his doomsday nonsense tomorrow when the sun rises as usual. Su Rui swirls his wine glass, laughing even louder, promising that if nothing happens tonight, he'll personally go and smash that bunker to pieces. He even jokes about committing Qin Lai to a mental hospital, while the livestream chat fills with a chorus of mockery and ridicule. Meanwhile, inside the Blackstone base, it is so quiet that the only sound is the low, rhythmic hum of the energy core. We see Qin Lai check his wrist. The time is 23:59 and 50 seconds, with only 10 seconds remaining until the world changes forever. While the outside world continues its frantic, final celebration, the base remains a sanctuary of silence, waiting for the inevitable strike of midnight. As the countdown hits 0, a heavy, muffled hum, sounding as if it came from the dawn of time, vibrates through the entire planet. The earth gives a violent, sudden shudder, and in the livestream, Su Rui's arrogant laughter comes to a jarring, absolute halt. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his villa, the once clear and bright moon has transformed into a haunting, crimson orb. It hung in the sky like a massive, bleeding eyeball, staring down at a civilization that was completely unprepared for the nightmare. The moon, why is it actually red? Su Rui screams in terror, not even noticing as his expensive wine glass shatters against the floor. Suddenly, the purebred poodle in Zhao Yuqing's arms begins to growl and bark with a ferocity that sounds entirely inhuman. The dog lets out a bone-chilling roar. Under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of viewers, the poodle's body begins to swell like a balloon. It expands frantically, sprouting black spikes across its skin while its eyes turn crimson and its mouth fills with razor-sharp fangs. The mutated poodle lunges at Zhao Yuqing, its sharp claws tearing through her shoulder and knocking her straight to the ground. We see the camera shake violently as screams pierce the air. Zhao Yuqing, her face deathly pale, begs Su Rui to save her. She reaches out desperately, but Su Rui is already paralyzed with terror. "Get away! Don't come near me!" he shouts in a panic. He retreats in a frantic mess, even kicking away her hand before scrambling toward the second floor. Zhao Yuqing is left behind. She lies on the floor, her clothes stained red as she trembles, calling out for the man who claimed to love her. But the only response is the sight of Su Rui's fleeing back. The mutated poodle growls, its crimson eyes locked onto its prey. In the livestream chat, comments are scrolling frantically, asking why Su Rui would abandon her after all his grand promises. To be honest, her hope is vanishing fast, replaced by a surge of intense resentment and bitterness as she faces her end. Just as the monster prepares to pounce, the red spider lily tattoo on her waist suddenly glows with an eerie, blood-red light. Ethereal red petals begin to bloom around her, and the air is suddenly filled with a cold, sickly sweet floral fragrance. The mutated poodle freezes mid-motion. It seems to have caught the scent of something far more dangerous than itself. A flicker of genuine fear appears in the creature's eyes. Slowly, Zhao Yuqing raises her head, her expression transformed. Deep within her pupils, we see a sea of blood-red flowers reflecting a chill that has nothing to do with the weather. Despite the nightmare unfolding, she leans against the wall and slowly stands up, her body still trembling from the shock. The wound on her shoulder is now covered by shifting red patterns, and a strange, haunting glow settles over her pale face. The livestream chat explodes in disbelief. She has awakened a power, though it looks far more sinister than anything they expected. Suddenly, the screen goes black. The feed is cut. Qinlai watches the dark display, a cold, knowing smile touching his lips. The spider lily blooms on the road to the underworld, where there is no return. Zhao Yuqing has chosen her path well. The power within Qinlai has reached its absolute peak. And then, the world around them descends into total chaos. We see the red moon's energy piercing through 100 meters of solid earth, descending upon Su Xiaodao and Jiang Xini simultaneously. They let out muffled groans of pain as the energy, like boiling lava, surges into their veins. On Su Xiaodao's left arm, the tattoo of the great god Neze erupts in a pillar of fire, while on his right arm, the third eye of Erling Shun seems to snap open, radiating brilliant starlight. Meanwhile, the nine heavens, Xuannu totem on Jiang Xini's back creates a divine domain, lifting her high into the air. Her cold demeanor has become sacred and inviolable. They have finally awakened. But the energy Qinlai endures is 100 times greater. With a roar, he tears his jacket away. On his chest, the Panga tattoo explodes with a piercing, dark gold light, releasing a vast, ancient power that seems to weigh down the horizon. This absolute power erupts from him. Immediately after, a sharp, tearing pain rips through his back as nine low dragon roars echo through the depths of the shelter. The nine dragons pulling a coffin tattoo, fueled by the red moon energy, is now fully awake. 9 pitch-black dragon heads emerge from his back, their massive bodies covered in chillingly cold scales. Their crimson eyes snap open as they drag an ancient black coffin that floats behind him. Upon that coffin, crimson chains tighten with a metallic snap. An indescribable, forbidden pressure instantly sweeps through the entire underground fortress. Su Xiaodao turns pale and stumbles back, while even the spirit behind Jiang Xini seems to tremble slightly. It is as if she instinctively senses a predator. On Qinlai's left, the Dongfang Tai totem ignites with solar flames to burn the 8 realms. On his right, the phantom of the great sage erupts in a battle shadow that defies all laws. For Supreme, powers have awakened at once, but he quickly forces them down, suppressing the conflict between these 4 forbidden powers. To be honest, they are too strong. He cannot unleash them all at once, so he relies on Hanggu for strength and the dragons for suppression. With Dongfang's fire and the great sage's war, he can only choose one at a time. And just then, outside the shelter, a violent banging echoes against the heavy alloy gates. On the monitors, we see mutated boars and mutated sheep, driven mad by the scent of living flesh, throwing themselves at the entrance. Brother Lai, the beasts are here, Su Xiaodao mutters. He grips the 3-pointed double-edged blade of Erling Shun, his eyes burning with battle lust. Qinlai simply cracks his neck, his joints sounding like rolling thunder. He decides it's time to head out and get some exercise. Let's see, he says, his voice calm despite the chaos. He wonders if these so-called apocalyptic beasts are even worthy of being served as a side dish. Outside the shelter, a thick black mist hangs in the air as dozens of mutated monsters batter the perimeter. Leading the pack is a massive creature with a body length of over 3 meters, a mutated boar king covered in obsidian scales. Each of its strikes makes the very earth tremble beneath their feet. As the side door slowly creaks open, Qinlai emerges shirtless, flanked by Su Xiaodao and Jiang Xini. The moment the monsters catch the scent of fresh blood and flesh, they stop their assault and turn in unison. Their crimson eyes lock onto our trio with murderous intent. With a deafening roar, the boar king charges, moving with the unstoppable momentum of a heavy tank directly toward Qinlai. Su Xiaodao warns him that this is a peak-level beast and tries to step forward, but Qinlai simply tells him to back off. He stands his ground, refusing to flinch or dodge, even as the boar's spear-like tusks close in on his chest. He finally moves. There are no flashy techniques here. He simply raises his right hand and calls upon the power of Pangu. The Pangu totem on his chest erupts in dark gold light as the phantom of an ancient giant gathers around his knuckles. As he strikes, the air is compressed to the limit, creating a piercing sonic boom. His fist connects solidly with the Boar King's skull. A wave of absolute power shatters the beast's internal organs and snuffs out its life instantly. The multi-ton monster doesn't even have time to let out a final cry. Its massive frame collapses like a pile of wet clay, right at Qinlai's feet. He has killed a peak-level king with a single blow. But then, 9 low dragon roars echo from his back. The phantom of the 9 dragons pulling a coffin manifests behind him, their eyes snapping open with draconic fury as they drag that ancient burden. 9 dragon suppression, he commands. The black coffin trembles, releasing a shockwave of pressure that seems to flatten the very air around them. A silent pressure, seemingly from the depths of the abyss, instantly blankets the entire forest. Those low-level mutated beasts don't even have a chance to resist. They are pinned directly to the ground, their bones letting out overwhelmed, brittle cracks. In just 10 seconds, dozens of mutated beasts are completely wiped out. Su Xiaodao watches the scene, utterly dumbfounded. Brother Lai, he stammers. This is just too ridiculous, isn't it? Standing behind him, Jiang Xinyi's cold eyes also flicker with a hint of shock. Qin Lai offers no explanation, simply walking toward the mutated Boar King. He raises a hand to slice open its skull, and a thumb-sized crystal emitting a faint red glow appears in his palm. This is a core, the most vital hard currency of the new world. A slight smile plays on his lips. His first harvest has finally arrived. He stores the core within his innate space. As it settles in, he can clearly feel the space vibrate ever so slightly. While the expansion is incredibly faint, it has indeed grown a fraction larger. In his previous life, humanity quickly discovered that cores could do more than just boost and awaken strength. They could also power special spaces, totems, and weapons. By the late stages of the apocalypse, they would even replace gold as the sole universal trading resource. He turns his gaze towards Su Xiaodao. He tells him to dig out all the cores from these beasts and not to waste the meat, which can be stored after purification. On it, Su Xiaodao perks up instantly. Just then, the sound of frantic footsteps and desperate cries for help echo from the mountain road nearby. Help! Someone help us! We see a dozen men, looking absolutely wretched, scrambling and crawling toward the shelter's entrance. Chasing close behind them are several mutated bloodblade spiders, creatures as swift and lethal as cheetahs. Qin Lai narrows his eyes and recognizes the man in the lead, Lu Pengzi, the contractor who once managed the exterior construction of the Blackstone base. In his past life, this group had kicked him while he was down, pushing him toward the monsters just to buy themselves time. Boss Qin, young Master Qin, save us, please, let us in a hide. We're all from Jiangzhou, you can't just watch us die. Qin Lai stands his ground, watching them with a cold, detached gaze. Watch you die, he muses, a chill flashing in his eyes. In his previous life, they certainly didn't care about being from the same city when they betrayed him. Lu Pengzi freezes, naturally unable to understand what Qin Lai is talking about. But he can read the look in those eyes. It isn't the gaze of a savior, but of someone looking at a dead man. He slowly raises his shelter doesn't take in trash, he declares. With a simple snap of his fingers, the outer titanium alloy walls instantly erupt with a terrifying surge of high-voltage electricity. The bloodblade mantises at the front are struck by millions of volts and are sent flying backward in an instant. He doesn't look back. While he won't hunt the innocent, he has no intention of saving his enemies. He turns to walk back into the shelter as the heavy titanium alloy doors slowly close. Outside, the screams are quickly swallowed by the black mist. By the third day of the red moon, the world has become a living hell. Downtown is a wasteland of wrecked cars and ruins. Stray cats and dogs, now as large as bulls, hunt survivors in packs. Meanwhile, inside the Blackstone shelter, the rich aroma of beef hot pot fills the air. Su Xiaodao, eating greedily, remarks that if every day is like this, the apocalypse might actually be bearable. Jiang Xinyi gives him a look that suggests he try his luck outside, and he shuts up. Qin Lai takes a sip of cold beer and leans back on the sofa. Just then, a piercing alarm suddenly rings out. The system warns of a large number of heat sources approaching. He taps the giant monitor, and we see the scene outside. A kilometer away on the mountain road, a massive crowd of 500 or 600 people is marching toward them. They are armed with machetes, steel pipes, and even automatic rifles. Leading this unruly mob is a shirtless, muscular bald man with a fierce expression. A vivid blood-colored python tattoo is coiled around his torso. This is Long Wu, leader of the Azure Dragon Society. In the previous life, he used his S-rank blood python soul to act as a tyrant. It seems in this life, he's made the mistake of targeting Qin Lai. On the screen, Long Wu shoulders his machete and roars toward the gate. He shouts that he knows about the lifetime's worth of food hoarded inside. He demands the doors be opened and the supplies and women handed over, promising a chance at life in exchange. Otherwise, he threatens to flatten this turtle shell today. To be honest, he has no idea who he's dealing with. These men even have the nerve to target Jiang Xinyi. Qin Lai simply smiles. His multi-million-dollar defense system is ready. Outside the shelter, Long Wu waits for a response, but the silence only fuels his growing rage. If you won't do this the easy way, he snarls, then we'll do it the hard way. Blow that gate to pieces. And so, 3 rockets are launched, trailing streaks of brilliant fire through the dark sky. They slam into the heavy doors with a deafening roar. The Azure Dragon thugs immediately erupt in cheers. To them, this doomsday fortress was nothing more than a fancy tin can. However, as the smoke clears, every smile freezes in an instant. The silver-gray titanium alloy gate remains standing, perfectly intact without even a single visible dent. Long Wu's expression darkens as he orders them to keep firing. But then, we see the metal plating above the wall slide open. 12 cold, 6-barreled Gatling guns slowly rise from their hidden compartments. Their dark, hollow muzzles ruthlessly lock onto the dense crowd below. Inside the monitoring room, Qin Lai calmly holds his glass and issues a single warning through the external speakers. He informs them that this is Blackstone Base, private property, and they must leave immediately or face the consequences. Long Wu only laughs, declaring that he is the law now before ordering his men to charge the gate. Qin Lai simply sets down his glass and gives the command to fire. A second later, 12 Gatlings roar to life. Large-caliber armor-piercing rounds weave into a lethal metal storm, lighting up the mountain road as the thugs fall in rows. Within a mere 30 seconds, the air is filled with screams. Over 200 gang members are instantly taken out of the fight. The remaining survivors scramble backward in pure terror. Inside, Qin Lai watches with a cold indifference. Some people, it seems, aren't worth saving. He eventually presses the stop button. Of the original 500 or 600 attackers, less than half are still standing. "I'll skin you alive," Long Wu roars, standing up soaked in blood. We see his skin begin to be covered by a thick layer of blood-red scales. As an S-rank blood python awakened, his durability is truly monstrous. Ordinary firepower struggles to kill him. He orders the Earth Awakened to dig a tunnel, determined to get inside today. Long Wu vows that if he doesn't kill the man inside, he isn't human. His men with pangolin tattoos start digging frantically into the ground. Qin Lai watches the monitors with cold detachment. He tells Xiao Dao and Cinny to stay put while he handles the trash. The massive gate slowly creaks open. Qin Lai walks out alone, meeting Long Wu's mocking gaze. Long Wu thinks the end is near and orders his remaining 200 thugs to attack. Seeing only one man, the thugs find their courage and charge. Qin Lai simply stands his ground and slowly lifts his left leg. The Dongwang Tai totem on his leg glows with a blinding gold light, releasing a heat that could melt everything in existence. This is the Solar True Fire. As he stomps the ground, a massive explosion of heat radiates outward from his position. The thugs in the front are instantly incinerated or sent flying by the golden flames. The ground beneath them is scorched. It turns pitch black as weapons melt into liquid iron. The survivors scramble back, unable to endure the blistering heat. They don't even have the right to get close to him. In a single move, the entire force of 200 men is broken. Only Long Wu remains, standing alone until his legs give out and he collapses. He can only gasp, calling Qin Lai a monster. Qin Lai approaches him slowly, asking if he finally knows fear. But of course, it's far too late. Long Wu remains on his knees, but he isn't finished yet. A desperate madness fills his eyes as he bites his tongue, spraying blood onto his python tattoo. With a horrific, inhuman shriek, his body begins to twist and stretch as scales erupt from his skin. He transforms into a massive blood python, 20 meters long. His S-rank totem has reached its full awakening. The beast lunges, its maw wide enough to swallow a vehicle whole. A foul wind sweeps across the mountain, pulling rocks and debris into the serpent's gaping throat. But then, a terrifying battle intent surges from Qin Lai. His body is suddenly draped in a brilliant, flowing golden light. His bones roar with power as he manifests the legendary armor and crown of the great sage, the Monkey King. A phantom slowly emerges behind Qin Lai, and the moment those golden eyes snap open, the thick black mist in the sky is torn asunder. Through the rift, the blood python lunges, but our hero doesn't retreat. Instead, he launches himself upward like a cannonball and plants a foot squarely on the beast's lower jaw, forcing that massive head to snap backward. The python shrieks in agony as its enormous body begins to thrash, desperate to shake him off. But Qin Lai remains perfectly balanced on its head, his feet anchored as if to a mountain. He doesn't budge an inch. Infuriated, the blood python sweeps its massive tail across the clearing, pulverizing every rock and tree. In its path, Qin Lai raises his right hand, and the phantom of the great sage behind him mirrors the movement, reaching into the void for a long staff wreathed in golden flames. Ancient runes begin to glow along its length, revealing the legendary form of the golden cudgel. As his fingers close around the phantom weapon, a surge of violent, indescribable battle intent erupts, shaking the very air around them. With a single, powerful sweep, the golden cudgel collides with the python's tail in a deafening explosion of force. The air itself seems to shatter, sending a hurricane-like shockwave through the forest. The python's tail, which could easily crush an armored car, meets its match. Under the weight of that strike, the creature's scales shatter as it is sent tumbling back. For the first time, we see true fear in Long Wu's eyes. He can't believe it, an S-rank totem being suppressed so easily. Qin Lai simply stands atop the beast's head, looking down with a gaze as cold as ice. He reminds the monster that a mere S-rank is nothing when standing before a forbidden totem. To be honest, it wasn't even a fair fight. He raises the golden cudgel high with both hands, and the great sage phantom begins to grow at an impossible rate, 10 meters, 30, 50, until a golden warrior stands tall enough to touch the clouds. With feet planted in the mist and his head beneath the red moon, the great sage brings the massive staff down with the power to level mountains. The blow strikes the python's weakest point with a thunderous roar. In that moment, it feels as if the entire mountain range has shuddered. The earth splits open, and the massive serpent is driven deep into the broken ground. The scales at its neck explode into fragments as the terrifying power of the great sage shatters its bones and destroys every last spark of life within. The python's pupils contract one last time, its body twitches, and then everything goes still. The black mist clinging to the mountain is violently swept away by the lingering power of that single strike. Qinlai puts away the golden cudgel and lands firmly. Behind him, the phantom of the great sage slowly dissipates, leaving only a faint golden glow emanating from the totem on his right leg. The S-rank awakener, Long Wu, has been shocked to death by that one blow. Qinlai uses his fingers like a blade to slice open the python's skull. From within, he retrieves a golden box radiating a dense red light. An S-rank totem box is, to be honest, just barely acceptable for his needs. He stores it in his personal space and turns back toward the shelter. Behind him, the defeated survivors don't even dare to lift their heads. We see him collect hundreds of golden boxes from the battlefield. Most are only D-rank, but as they say, quantity has a quality all its own. As the energy floods into his personal space, he can feel the dimensions expanding. Even the source power within his body begins to swell. It becomes richer and more potent. But the real surprise comes as the 9 dragons pulling a coffin totem on his back grows increasingly vivid. On that ancient black coffin, the first of the 9 chains actually shows a hint of loosening. He closes his eyes to listen. He senses the obscure information flowing from the totem. It turns out the 9 dragons pulling a coffin isn't just for suppression. Its truly terrifying power lies in its ability to devour. It can consume beast boxes, enemy remnants, and anything else that holds power. It converts that energy and feeds it back to him, strengthening his physical body, his source power, and his personal space. This ability is known as Coffin Devour. However, since the first chain isn't fully unlocked yet, he can't quite use its full potential. To truly activate the devouring power, he needs a high-level golden box to act as a key, at least a level 5 beast box. A level 5 box then? He opens his eyes with a faint smirk. He remembers that in his previous life, something appeared in the East Sea. A level 5 beast had indeed emerged there, nearly destroying all of Jiangzhou. But in this life, things will be different. He has already decided that its golden box belongs to him. Satisfied, he walks back inside as the heavy shelter doors slowly groan shut. The slaughter outside is cut off. Xue Xiaodao rushes over, his eyes bright with fanaticism, telling Qinlai that he is absolutely incredible. Jiang Xini hands him a warm towel, her eyes shimmering with admiration. She tells him the hot pot is still waiting for them. He wipes his hands and settles onto the sofa to enjoy some wagyu. Meanwhile, 500 meters beneath Kyoto, in a high-security bunker, inside the command center, we find the atmosphere has reached a breaking point. Reports indicate the Eastern Theater's third line has collapsed under 3 level 4 beasts. They have broken the blockade. Meanwhile, an abnormal tsunami hits the southern coast, suggesting a deep-sea giant is landing. Reports show that thermal weapons are losing their effectiveness against level 3 beasts and above. Our Awakener forces are taking heavy losses, each piece of news hitting like a hammer. Standing before a massive electronic sand table, the commander closes his eyes in pain. To be honest, the weight on his shoulders is unimaginable. This is Commander Long, the highest military authority in the Dragon Kingdom. It has been only 3 days since the Red Moon arrived. In that short time, the modern civilization humans were so proud of has been ravaged. Even the military seems increasingly powerless against these mutated giants. He wonders if this is truly the end for them. But just then, the intelligence officer in charge of monitoring the situation suddenly stands up. "Commander, look at this," he cries, pointing to the footage a high-altitude stealth drone just sent back. We see the image on the large screen zoom in rapidly. It reveals a mountain fortress encased in thick titanium alloy walls. Outside the gate, the forest is scarred by fire and bullets. Vehicles and weapons abandoned by the Azure Dragon Society thugs are scattered everywhere. And right in the center of the frame, a shirtless young man stands alone on the mountain road. It is, of course, our protagonist, Qinlai. Before him lies a terrifying blood python, 20 meters long and thick as a water barrel. Its body is covered in dark red scales. Its massive eyes are filled with madness as its body coils through the trees like a monster crawling out of the abyss. "That's an S-rank Awakener in his beast form. Commander," the officer shouts, his voice trembling with the gravity of the situation. He asks about sending reinforcements, but it's too late. By the time their people could arrive at such a distance, the fight would be over. But in the next heartbeat, the command center falls into a stunned silence as they watch the screen. Qinlai's right leg suddenly erupts with a brilliant golden light. A defiant, golden warrior phantom begins to manifest behind him. The phantom is clad in golden chainmail and a phoenix wing crown, wielding a massive golden staff that seems to weigh down the very air. Even through the drone's transmission, everyone in the room can feel a surge of violent, world-sweeping battle intent. "What is this?" the officer stammers, unable to find the words. No one answers him, because the warrior on the screen has left them speechless. The battle has reached its most shocking stage. We see the young man step onto the blood python's head, his hands gripping the golden staff. Behind him, the Golden Warrior Phantom begins to expand, 10 meters, 30, 50, until it transforms completely. It becomes a terrifying entity nearly as tall as the mountains. A second later, he brings the golden staff down hard on the python's vital spot. Boom. Even through the screen, we can see the entire forest shudder as the ground cracks and stones fly into the air. That S-rank blood python, whose defenses might have withstood heavy artillery, is driven into the earth by a single blow. The python's massive body twitches violently before falling completely still. Back in the command center, the silence is absolute. It takes several long seconds before someone finally manages to swallow. To kill an S-rank beast with one strike, well, that is unheard of. How is this possible? What rank of awakener is he? Finally, the target's identity is revealed. His name is Qin Lai. He is 22, the former heir to the Qin group. 20 days before the Red Moon arrived, his behavior changed abruptly. He sold all his assets to buy the Blackstone base in the suburbs and began stockpiling massive amounts of supplies. He also took 2 companions to a tattoo parlor for 7 straight days to complete extensive body art. This was just before the Red Moon. One day before the disaster, he officially moved into the base. A realization settles over the command center like a heavy fog. It seems this young man, Qin Lai, knew the apocalypse was coming. The commander orders a full investigation into his companions. He demands Qin Lai be classified as a top-tier strategic target and orders a special envoy to be sent to Jiangzhou immediately. On the morning after the Azure Dragon Society was wiped out, we find Qin Lai relaxing in the bunker's heated pool. He is busy absorbing the massive amount of energy within his body when a piercing alarm breaks the silence once again. Su Xiaodao hurries to the poolside and hands him a tablet. "Brother, more fools at the door," he says, but not many this time. There are only a few dozen, but the leader looks like an old acquaintance. Qin Lai takes the tablet and glances at the screen. A cold smile touches his lips. On the screen, dozens of thugs in tattered clothes and carrying crude weapons are approaching the bunker. Though the man leading them is covered in filth and looks like a ghost of his former self, Qin Lai recognizes him instantly. This is Su Rui, the son of Jiangzhou's richest man and Qin Lai's rival from a past life. On the day the Red Moon arrived, he was live streaming at his villa. We see that he was terrified by a mutated dog, but somehow, he survived the early apocalypse thanks to the Cerberus tattoo on his back. He managed to endure while the city center became a playground for monsters. Eventually, his mountain villa was overrun and destroyed. He fled like a madman, sacrificing dozens of bodyguards along the way. He knew perfectly well that the only safe place in Jiangzhou was the bunker. And so, he came crawling like a stray dog to Qin Lai's mountain hideout. "Qin Lai," he screams at the camera from 50 meters away. Su Rui stands there, pointing a finger and letting out a hysterical roar. "I know you're in there," he shouts, his voice cracking with desperation. "Do you think you're safe hiding in that turtle shell?" he bellows. He claims to have awakened the dark power of the Hellhound. He believes he is a powerhouse now. "Today, I'm going to smash your door down and take everything you have," he yells. Watching Su Rui rant like a clown on the screen, Qin Lai stands up from the pool. To be honest, the spectacle is almost pathetic. He grabs a towel to dry himself off, unimpressed. It seems a simple black-grade totem was enough to make Su Rui lose his mind with arrogance. Su Xiaodao offers to handle it, but Qin Lai refuses. He wants to settle this old grudge personally. "Open the door," he commands. With a heavy mechanical thud, the titanium alloy gates slowly grind open. Qin Lai steps out of the bunker alone to face his rival. "So you finally came out," Su Rui sneers. Qin Lai looks at the group of thugs behind him, a collection of rotten fish and shrimp as he sees them. He glances at the trembling mob with pure disdain. "To deal with you," Qin Lai says calmly. "I only need myself." But Su Rui has a surprise. "Qin Lai, look who I brought for you," he shouts as the crowd parts to reveal a slender figure in the black mist. A woman steps forward in a blood-stained red dress. Her skin is pale, her features delicate, but her eyes now hold a sinister, crimson glow. It is a haunting sight. On her exposed waist, a blood-red equinox flower tattoo begins to bloom, petal by petal, in a slow, eerie dance. Semi-transparent red petals drift behind her as a chilling fragrance fills the air. This is Zhao Yuqing, and she is far from ordinary now. It turns out she didn't die. Not only is she alive, but she has awakened a terrifying power, the equinox flower of the underworld. The thugs around her fall into a trance, their eyes glazing over. Some even drop to their knees, crawling toward her like lost souls. She raises a hand, and a blood-colored vine drops from her fingertips, wrapping around a thug's neck. Instead of struggling, the man wears a look of pure ecstasy, which is quite a disturbing way to go. An equinox flower blooms from his chest, and Zhao Yuqing narrows her eyes as color returns to her face. "Didn't expect this, did you?" Su Rui sneers from behind her. Yes, he is quite proud of himself. He mocks Qin Lai's previous arrogance, boasting that Zhao Yuqing is now an A-rank mental type awakened. Her fragrance can control dozens of awakened at once, making her a truly formidable weapon. Su Rui wants to see if Qin Lai can actually bring himself to strike his former lover. With a soft laugh, Zhao Yuqing walks toward him, blood-red flowers blooming beneath every step she takes. As the fragrance thickens, the world around Qin Lai begins to blur and dissolve into a thick mist. Suddenly, we see him back in his past life, lying bloodied among the ruins during the monster tide. The Cerberus approaches him step by step, while Zhao Yuqing kneels by his side, weeping uncontrollably. She begs for his forgiveness, claiming she never should have left him or trusted Su Rue. She promises to stay by his side forever, reaching out to touch his face with a heartbreaking tenderness. "Forgive me, Qinlai," she whispers, but he only stares at her before letting out a cold laugh. He tells her plainly that her illusion is far too fake to deceive him for even a second. As he takes a step forward, the phantom of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin erupts behind him. The ancient black coffin floats in the air, its crimson chains vibrating with a silent, terrifying pressure. This overwhelming power descends, shattering the illusion of the ruins and the weeping woman like broken glass. Reality returns, leaving Zhao Yuqing pale and coughing up blood as she stumbles back in shock. Her floral phantom trembles and withers, and she stares at Qinlai, unable to believe her power failed. "Impossible," she gasps. Her yellow spring fragrance is meant to drag a person's deepest obsessions to the surface. How could he possibly remain completely unaffected? "Obsession," Qinlai counters. "You think you're worthy of being my obsession?" At that, Zhao Yuqing's face instantly loses all its color. To be honest, those words cut deeper than any physical blow. She bites her lip, panic finally setting in. "Qinlai, you loved me once," she pleads, hoping he's just acting out of spite. Suddenly, her expression shifts, and she looks at him with tear-filled, pitiful eyes. She admits she made mistakes, but back then, she claims, she had no idea the world would end. She truly thought he had lost his mind. "Qinlai, if you just let me into the shelter, I can be yours again. I'm an A rank awakened now. Imagine how much I could help you. I can keep the other survivors in line. I have value now." Yes, she is actually trying to negotiate her way back. "You traitor," Su Rue barks, reminded that she was just promising to help him kill Qinlai. Zhao Yuqing suddenly turns her head and screams at him to shut up. If he hadn't humiliated Qinlai on that livestream and forced her to watch the spectacle, she wouldn't be in this mess. Besides, when he ran for his life, did he even look back at her once? Su Rue is shaking with pure rage. Meanwhile, Qinlai watches this pathetic display of infighting, feeling nothing but boredom. It's almost funny to think these two were his downfall in another life. "Qinlai, I'm sorry. I truly, deeply regret it. Just give me one more chance, please." She reaches out to grab his wrist, but an invisible pressure blasts her back before she can even make contact. He looks down at her, his voice cold and steady. He knows she doesn't actually feel remorse. She's just realized Su Rue can no longer protect her, and that Qinlai is the stronger man. Zhao Yuqing trembles, her eyes brimming with tears as he raises his right hand. Behind him, the phantom of the black coffin creaks open, and a dark chain snakes out to coil around the flower totem on her waist. The equinox flower is a beautiful thing, he notes, but it's a pity it bloomed in the wrong place. With a sharp tug, the chain tightens, and Zhao Yuqing's screams fill the air. Behind her, the sea of blood-red flowers collapses as the phantom petals wither. We see the totem power within her being forcibly suppressed by the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. The mark on her waist fades, and she collapses, completely drained of strength. "My power. Qinlai, you sealed my power." She stares at him in utter despair. To her, this is worse than death. She tells him he might as well kill her, but Qinlai simply notes she isn't worth a second strike. Meanwhile, Su Rue looks at the now powerless Zhao Yuqing. There isn't a shred of pity in his eyes, only a growing, toxic resentment. "You're useless," he snarls. He mocks her for not even being able to charm a single man. Zhao Yuqing can hardly believe her ears. "Su Rue, what did you just say?" Su Rue kicks the ground beside her, roaring that if it weren't for a jinx like her, he wouldn't be in this mess. And just like that, the very last of Zhao Yuqing's delusions are shattered. To be honest, she should have seen this betrayal coming. Qinlai watches the spectacle with a sense of profound boredom. The apocalypse doesn't change people, it just reveals their darkest corners. He turns his gaze towards Su Rue. The farce is over, and it's time to settle the bill. The arrogant smirk on Su Rue's face is gone, replaced by a terror he can no longer hide. He finally understands that his precious A-rank hellhound means absolutely nothing to the man standing before him. "Impossible," he screams. "I am an A-rank. I am invincible." Su Rue has finally snapped. He lets out a primal, beast-like roar as his clothes tear away, revealing something monstrous. A 3-headed hound, 5 meters long and wreathed in dark flames, manifests behind him. We watch as Su Rue's own body swells with unnatural muscle, his hands twisting into razor-sharp claws. With a suffocating stench of sulfur, he lunges forward with everything he has. "Die," he screams, as the central head of the hound spits a torrent of black fire. Facing this massive display of power, Qinlai doesn't even bother to move. In his eyes, an A-rank isn't even worth being called a dog. He takes a deep breath, feeling the terrifying blood energy within him, surging like a great river. Without calling upon a single totem, relying only on his own physical strength, he pulls his fist back like a heavy shell and strikes directly into the heart of the black flames. Boom. The terrifying force of the fist tears right through the black flames, smashing into the thing Su Rue was most proud of. His palm. Crack. A sickening sound of bone shattering rings out as Su Rue's right arm snaps instantly. The impact continues unabated, slamming hard into his chest. Another crack follows, and Su Rue begins to cough up a spray of fresh, crimson blood. It's because you're too weak, Qin Lai says, walking toward him and looking down at his broken form. I was wrong. Please spare me, Su Rue begs. Qin Lai looks at him with eyes as still as a frozen lake. In the previous life, Su Rue had pushed him into a beast's nest. In this life, he won't do that. For a moment, a flicker of hope crosses Su Rue's face, but it's short-lived. That would be far too easy. Qin Lai slowly raises his hand as the 9 dragons appear. The black coffin opens slightly, and a dark chain snakes out, instantly piercing the 3-headed hellhound totem behind Su Rue. Su Rue screams in agony. We see the hellhound totem struggling wildly, but it is pinned down by the 9 black dragons. They suppress it with absolute force. Crack! A fissure appears on the totem, and Su Rue's power recedes like a retreating tide. His body shrinks back to its original size, leaving him a scarred, powerless, ordinary man. My power. Qin Lai, give it back. Didn't you enjoy being a dog? Qin Lai asks. Well, from this day forward, you aren't even worth as much as a dog. The surrounding thugs watch the fallen Su Rue, and their gazes gradually change. In this wasteland, the weak have no dignity, especially a man who, to be honest, used so many others as bait to survive. Now, karma has finally arrived. Screams soon fill the air, but Qin Lai doesn't look back. Eventually, Su Rue's voice falls silent. Only a dim A-rank core remains on the ground. He casually stores it away. The rival who once sent him to his death didn't even have the right to make him use his full strength today. Suddenly, a deafening roar of engines echoes from the sky. The buzzing of rotors blows away the surrounding black mist. He looks up to see 3 dark green military attack helicopters circling above the air raid shelter. As they descend and the cabin doors open, 2 figures emerge. A row of fully armed Special Forces soldiers quickly jumps down, securing the perimeter. We see a senior commander, accompanied by several guards, walking over with a brisk pace. Hello, Mr. Qin. I am Lei Zhan, the deputy commander of the Eastern region. He explains he has come by order of the Supreme Commander. Qin Lai acknowledges him, noting that the commander must have worked hard. With monsters running rampant outside, the fact that they found this place proves the command center is still trying to maintain order. Hearing this, a flicker of surprise crosses Lei Zhan's eyes. He likely expected an awakened with such terrifying power to be more arrogant. But Qin Lai knows that in this apocalypse, the military is the last shield for ordinary people. To be honest, they are essential. Without them holding the front lines, Jiangzhou would have collapsed long ago. Lei Zhan takes a deep breath and looks at him. Mr. Qin, we saw the drone footage of you killing the S-rank blood python. Your strength is far beyond anything we've seen. He explains that the Supreme Commander wants to establish a top-level strategic partnership with him. It's a bold move, really. They aren't asking him to hand over the Blackstone base. They only hope that when the Dragon Kingdom faces a major disaster, he might be willing to lend a helping hand within his own capabilities. It's a reasonable request, all things considered. I can do that, Qin Lai replies, causing Lei Zhan's eyes to light up with relief. But there are conditions, of course. He explains that he prefers to act independently and isn't suited for a regular military command structure. He values his freedom. Blackstone Base will remain an independent outpost. The military will handle the survivors and the defense lines while he provides support. He will offer intelligence and, when the situation demands it, eliminate high-level beasts. It's a fair trade, we might say. Sharing resources and intelligence is the most efficient way forward. Lei Zhan promises to relay this proposal to the Supreme Commander. Since we are partners, Qin Lai says, I'll give you a piece of intelligence right now. He mentions a date, 3 days away. At 2 in the morning, the first massive ocean tide will erupt in the East Sea. A level 5 deep sea ancient dragon will lead 100,000 sea beasts to land in Jiangzhou. Without heavy artillery defense lines, the city is doomed. The entire eastern region would suffer a devastating blow. Lei Zhan's face turns pale as cold sweat begins to soak his uniform. Lei Zhan stares at him intently, searching for any sign of a joke, but he finds only a chilling, absolute calmness. Mr. Qin, is this intelligence reliable? He asks, knowing he cannot afford to gamble with the lives of 3 million people. Taking a deep breath, Lei Zhan promises to report to the Supreme Commander immediately and mobilize the entire eastern region. As they prepare for defense, Qin Lai lists his price: heavy industrial equipment, high-precision machinery, and specialized alloys. He also demands 10 naval-grade automated defense systems and a stockpile of thermobaric weapons for his own base. He won't take these for free, of course. In exchange, he promises to prioritize the military for any future high-level intelligence. Lei Zhan notes these are strictly strategic materials, and he must consult the Dragon Commander before making such a commitment. But personally, he believes this trade is worth it. It's a deal, Mr. Qin. Thank you for your willingness to cooperate. The military will hold the line for humanity, while Qin Lai handles the monsters they aren't yet equipped to face. It is a matter of everyone playing their part. Lei Zhan promises to deliver that exact message to the Supreme Commander. We watch as Lei Zhan hurries away to his transport. Qin Lai's gaze darkens as he thinks of the Wuji Beast King. That creature is the key to unlocking the first chain of the 9 dragons. He is determined to claim its core. 3 days pass in the blink of an eye. Heavy transport helicopters begin arriving with the specialized machinery Qin Lai requested. Automated cannons and thermobaric bombs are delivered to the shelter's entrance, while Lei Zhan sends word about the remaining supplies. As the materials arrive in batches, Qin Lai stores them in his subspace, and the shelter's defense rating soars once again. At 2 in the morning on the 4th day, we find him in the monitoring room, sipping a hot cup of black coffee. "Brother Lai, it's pouring outside," Su Xiaodao remarks, staring at the screen. "But why is the rain black?" Qin Lai takes a slow sip, his eyes reflecting a deep, knowing darkness. It has finally begun. Meanwhile, in the east, at the coastal defense line, Lei Zhan stands in his command post, staring at a radar screen filled with a tsunami of red dots. Cold sweat pours down his face. Qin Lai's warning was terrifyingly accurate. The East Sea beasts have officially made landfall. "Fire! Open fire across the entire line," Lei Zhan screams, knowing they cannot let the monsters reach the city where 3 million survivors wait. Our ears ring as the heavy artillery positions erupt, sending countless shells trailing fire through the sky to smash into the coastline. The night sky is lit as bright as day, but as the flares rise, we see the faces of the frontline soldiers turn pale with despair. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of thousands of mutated sea beasts treading the waves, some as massive as armored vehicles, like nightmare-inducing giant crabs. We see amphibious mermen covered in poisonous spikes and schools of sea snakes charging through the barrage with terrifying, frantic speed. In less than 10 minutes, the first line of defense is utterly shredded, and the reports coming in are nothing short of disastrous. The numbers are too high, the line is collapsing. Lei Zhan draws his pistol, his eyes bloodshot from the sheer weight of the moment. He orders the entire army to stand their ground. Even if they all fall today, the civilians must be protected at all costs. Just as the military prepares for a final, desperate stand, the earth begins to tremble with a force that feels almost personal. A terrifying, indescribable pressure sweeps in from the deep sea, reaching the 3 million souls hiding in the ruins of Jiangzhou City. Everyone feels a sharp, crushing pain in their chest, as if a mountain has been placed upon their hearts, making every breath a struggle. What is that?" Lei Zhan whispers, looking up at the distant night sky with a gaze that has lost all hope. We watch as the thick black mist is torn apart by massive bone wings, revealing a creature over 100 meters long wrapped in ghostly vapor. This terrifying bone dragon descends slowly from the clouds, its eyes glowing like massive lanterns that radiate the very chill of death. This is a level 5 beast king, the ancient sea dragon, a name that, in these early days, is synonymous with absolute invincibility. To be honest, it is a world-ending disaster capable of erasing a city, and it marks its arrival with a roar that shatters the heavens. The dragon opens its abyss-like maw, unleashing a breath of ink-black flames that promises nothing but total annihilation. As death descends on the coast, we return to the shelter where Qin Lai calmly sets down his coffee cup. On the screen, that 100-meter ancient dragon is flaunting its power, but in Qin Lai's eyes, there is only a predatory, burning excitement. Su Xiaodao's face pales as he realizes Qin Lai is heading out, while Jiang Xini grabs his arm, certain that this is a step too far. Jiang Xini worries he is being reckless, but Qin Lai simply pats her hand with a smirk, telling her she is being silly. He explains that his 9 dragons pulling the coffin still lacks a key, and he has set his sights on this giant lizard's core. Meanwhile, as the ancient dragon continues its rampage, we see Lei Zhan close his eyes and wait for the end, until a strange hum fills the air. At that exact moment, a beam of pitch-black light erupts from the mountains outside Jiangzhou, piercing the sky with a power that is anything but cold. Instead, it carries an ancient majesty that tears through the thick mist, leaving us to wonder what exactly we are witnessing. Lei Zhan's eyes snap open as 3 million survivors and the remaining soldiers all turn their heads instinctively toward the shelter. There, under the gaze of thousands, we see a slender young man rising into the air. It is Qin Lai. "It's Mr. Qin, it's Qin Lai," Lei Zhan shouts, his body trembling with a sudden, desperate hope as the young man begins his ascent. As he rises, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin totem unfolds completely, sending 9 massive dragon shadows stretching hundreds of meters across the sky. Their starlight eyes snap open as they drag an ancient black coffin through the air above Jiangzhou, a sight that is as terrifying as it is magnificent. The chains on the coffin vibrate, releasing a supreme, forbidden pressure that feels like a tidal wave of ancient power. This aura sweeps across the entire city, and beneath this crushing weight, the 100,000 sea beasts below can only tremble in fear. To Qin Lai, the 100,000 beasts below are nothing more than a minor nuisance, a mere distraction, really, as his totem erupts with power. The massive image of Pangu manifests behind him, and facing the incoming blast of dragon breath, he doesn't even bother to move. He simply raises his right fist as the Pangu phantom releases a thunderous roar, channeling the world-shattering power of the Heaven Splitter. With a single step forward, his fist collides with the black dragon breath, and for a moment, it looks as if the sky itself is being torn apart. The black flames are forcibly ripped in half by the sheer dominance of his strike, splitting into two massive waves of fire. These torrents of flame roar past him on either side, crashing into the ruins and carving 2,000-meter-long scorched trenches into the earth. Yet Qin Lai stands perfectly still between the seas of fire, while the Pangu phantom behind him slowly begins to lift its head. The once blurry silhouette of the ancient god begins to solidify, and a dark golden light begins to radiate from his chest with blinding intensity. The Pangu tattoo on Qin Lai's chest spreads across his skin, merging with the towering phantom as he decides it is finally his turn. As he speaks, the tattoo erupts with light, and the once ethereal Pangu phantom begins to solidify into something far more substantial. It swells to dozens of meters in height, its muscles knotted and powerful, radiating an ancient aura that feels as if it stepped out from the dawn of time. We see a massive bone weapon, forged from pure heaven-splitting power, gradually turning from a mere shadow into a solid reality. Dark gold divine patterns ignite along the blade, and as Qin Lai slowly raises his right hand, the Pangu phantom follows his lead. Man and shadow move in perfect, chilling unison, and for the first time, the ancient dragon seems to sense that its end is near. Fear finally flickers in its eyes as it desperately beats its wings to escape, but the Pangu phantom has already locked onto its target. The black mist around the dragon seems to freeze under that gaze, and as Qin Lai takes a thunderous step forward, his voice echoes. Pangu splits the heavens, he declares, swinging his hand down as the Pangu phantom behind him mimics the movement. The phantom swings the massive bone weapon at the same instant, unleashing a dark gold arc of light that tears through the darkness. It looks as if the night sky itself might be cleaved in two, and though the ancient dragon tries to dodge, the light strikes home. The blow slashes into its supposedly indestructible wings with a sickening crack, causing the massive structures to shatter instantly. Its massive body loses balance, falling toward the earth like a dying star, but Qin Lai has no intention of letting it catch its breath. He vanishes in a flash of dark gold light, reappearing instantly above the falling beast with the Pangu phantom looming right behind him. As Qin Lai clenches his fist, the phantom grips its bone axe with both hands, raising it high for a final, devastating blow. The ancient dragon struggles to look up, its eyes wide with a terror that, to be honest, is entirely justified. Shatter, Qin Lai commands, his voice cold as he prepares to end the ancient dragon's existence once and for all. The strike descends with the weight of a mountain, leaving no room for the beast to escape its fate. The dragon's bloated, massive body is driven violently into the earth, embedding itself deep within the bottom of a fresh crater. It is a crushing conclusion to the beast's rampage, leaving the ground trembling as the dust finally begins to settle. The whole process takes less than 3 minutes. As the black mist clears, we see the starlight and crimson moonlight spilling over the earth once more. Qin Lai deactivates his titanic form, his body returning to its normal size as he lands steadily on the ancient dragon's massive skull. He presses his fingers together like a blade, slicing through the bone to extract a basketball-sized level 5 golden core that radiates a dense, black, and gold light. Feeling the vast, sea-like energy within the core, he satisfiedly tucks it away, and to be honest, it's a prize well earned. Below him, the 100,000 sea beasts, having lost their king, completely collapse and retreat back into the ocean like a receding tide. Jiangzhou City has been saved. Cries of Mr. Qin, erupt from the survivors. The gratitude for saving Jiangzhou's 3 million citizens rises up like a tsunami, echoing through the night sky. Standing atop the dragon's head, Qin Lai looks down as Commander Lei Zhan approaches with deep respect. Qin Lai tells him there is no need for such formality. If the Order Force hadn't held the beast nest at the front, Jiangzhou might not have lasted. Until he could intervene, Lei Zhan is momentarily stunned as Qin Lai continues, explaining that this battle wasn't won by him alone. He acknowledges the soldiers who died on the front lines, noting they were the ones who truly saved the city. Lei Zhan's eyes grow red, and behind him, many officers lower their heads in solemn respect. Qin Lai stores the golden core and advises them to move the survivors and repair the defensive lines as quickly as possible. The retreat is only temporary, and he knows the true disaster is still to come. Lei Zhan assures him that the Order Force will stabilize the city. Qin Lai simply asks to be notified immediately if any level 5 or higher beasts appear. He will handle the high-level threats himself. Without another word, a flash of black gold light erupts behind him, and he transforms into a streak of light, flying back toward the black stone house. The massive gates slam shut, and back in the monitoring room, he picks up his tea and takes a sip. It's still at the perfect temperature, a small victory, really. Later, in the core power room at the bottom of the facility, he sits cross-legged on a meditation mat, holding the level 5 Ancient Sea Dragon Golden Core. He holds the level 5 Ancient Sea Dragon Golden Core, which contains an amount of energy far greater than the S-rank blood python core he found previously. In fact, it is over 100 times more powerful, and if even the military's strongest Esper tried to absorb this directly, they would likely explode instantly. But Qin Lai doesn't hesitate. He presses the core to his chest and begins to circulate his inner source power. Suddenly, a violent and freezing black energy surges through him like a catastrophic flood, rushing into his limbs and across the surface of his skin. Black frost begins to crystallize on his skin, and his bones creak under the immense pressure. A dead lizard, he decides, is hardly a match for him. With a cold grunt, the bone on his chest begins to glow as he snaps his eyes open. The domineering, heaven-opening power of his physique instantly surges to meet that dark energy, forcibly suppressing and crushing it. He then converts it into the purest form of primal energy, which begins to flood back into his body, strengthening his physical form. At the same time, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin totem on his back begins to tremble. We see the 9 black dragons appearing to move and flow beneath his very skin. On that ancient black coffin, the first star rainbow chain vibrates violently. Then, a faint cracking sound echoes deep within his soul. As the first of the great star rainbow chains finally gives way, it snaps completely. A surge of ancient information floods into his mind. The first lock of the 9 dragons has been opened, granting him a new ability, Coffin Devourment. From this moment on, Qin Lai can actively devour the golden cores of beasts, the residual energy of fallen enemies, and even the powers of suppressed totems. This energy will be refined by the black coffin to nourish his physical body, his natal space, and his 4 forbidden totems. In other words, as long as he has enough prey, he will only continue to grow stronger. As the ancient sea dragon's core is completely refined, his physical realm naturally breaks through to the peak of level 5. His natal space expands once more, and at the edge of that already vast and limitless expanse, a region as black as ink suddenly appears. It looks like a projection of the black coffin itself, silent, desolate, and unfathomably deep. He has a premonition that as the remaining chains of the 9 dragons are unlocked, this dark region will become something far more terrifying than his natal space. He slowly opens his eyes, his bones popping with the sound of rolling thunder. Coffin Devourment. It's a powerful tool, to say the least. From this moment on, all beasts are nothing more than fuel for his growth. The next morning, we find him in the underground training ground of the Black Market base, sitting on the alloy floor. He slowly opens his eyes. After devouring the core of the ancient sea dragon, the vital energy within him is several times stronger than it was before. The first chain of the 9 dragons has been broken, and the power of Coffin Devourment has fully integrated into his being. From now on, ordinary cores will offer him very little. To keep growing stronger, he knows he must hunt far more powerful prey. To keep progressing, he needs prey that is at least level 4. Just then, Xue Xiaodao walks in, his eyes gleaming with admiration for his leader. He notes that Qin Lai killed a level 5 bone dragon alone last night, while he and Jiang Xingyi were essentially just dead weight. Jiang Xingyi approaches from the other side, dressed in black combat gear with her long hair tied back, a rare look of determination in her cold eyes. She admits she needs real combat, as relying on resources alone won't help her master her true power. Qin Lai watches them and nods. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. After all, Xue Xiaodao's totems, the Erling deity and Neza, are both top-tier combat spirits. Meanwhile, Jiang Xingyi's 9 Heavens Mysterious Lady is a high-level totem capable of offense, defense, and battlefield purification. Their potential is immense, but in this dying world, potential isn't power. True masters are forged in mountains of monster corpses. He stands up, deciding it's time to head out. Xue Xiaodao's eyes light up as he asks where they're going. Qin Lai pulls up the military map. We see the screen filled with dense red dots, marking beast activity across the city ruins and the surrounding mountain forests. One area in the southern industrial park glows with a particularly piercing red light, marked by the military as a high-risk zone. It's a suspected level 4 nest. He points to the industrial park, explaining that mutant swarms moved in after the sea beasts retreated. Military drones have spotted at least 3 level 4 beasts there, along with a massive number of level 2 and 3 creatures. Xue Xiaodao grins at the news. To him, it sounds like a perfect place, plenty of targets and plenty of experience to gain. Jiang Xingyi studies the map calmly, noting that the park is quite close to the North District military camp. If the beasts continue to spread, they will eventually threaten the evacuation routes. This trip, then, would serve 2 purposes at once. By clearing the threat, they'd be doing the military a favor. With that in mind, he places a call to Lei Zhan. He gets straight to the point, asking if the military needs assistance. He informs them of his plan to clear the southern industrial park. Lei Zhan is stunned for a moment before a look of pure relief washes over his face. That area was exactly where they were preparing to ask for support. The park contains numerous chemical warehouses. If the beast were to breach them, the consequences would be catastrophic. Toxic gas would drift toward the North District camp, poisoning everyone. If Qin Lai is truly willing to step in, it would be a godsend. Lei Zhan promises that the military can provide immediate drone reconnaissance and seal off the entire area. Qin Lai tells him to handle the perimeter, but insists the military stay out of the interior while he takes Xiaodao and Xingyi in. The military agrees to set up a quarantine line to stop any escapees, while Lei Zhan urges Mr. Qin to be careful. Qin Lai remarks that it's the beasts who should be careful. 10 minutes later, we see the side gate of the base slowly open. A heavily modified black off-road vehicle rolls out, armored against bullets and fitted with specialized anti-skid tires. With an automatic machine gun mounted on the roof, Xue Xiaodao sits in the front, practically vibrating with excitement. Jiang Xingyi waits in the back, her divine sword flickering with energy, while Qin Lai takes the wheel and hits the gas. The engine lets out a predatory roar as the vehicle charges out of the base, heading south along the winding mountain roads. Through the lingering black mist, we see the wreckage of abandoned cars, all showing the jagged marks of beast attacks. Any low-level creatures that dare to approach are instantly shredded by the roof-mounted gun. Half an hour later, we reach our destination. The Southern Industrial Park looms before us, once a beacon of modern industry, now a sprawling, decaying nest for monsters. Amidst collapsed factories and twisted pipes, the air is thick with chemicals. Xue Xiaodao doesn't wait. He jumps out immediately. He asks for the plan, and Qin Lai looks deep into the ruins, sensing 3 auras far stronger than the rest. There are 2 level 4 armored lizards and a poison mist spider queen, surrounded by hundreds of lesser creatures. To a man of Qin Lai's caliber, these are insignificant, but for his companions, they are the perfect whetstones. He raises a hand, and as the 9 dragons on his back vibrate, an invisible wave of pressure washes over the park. The lesser beasts suddenly slow down, their movements heavy as if a mountain had just been dropped onto their shoulders. He carefully calibrates this aura, suppressing the monsters just enough to give Xiaodao and Xingyi a fair fight. He looks at them and makes it clear they are to handle the level 2 and 3 beasts entirely on their own. He will only suppress the level 4 threats. Unless their lives are at stake, he won't lift a finger to help. As his voice fades, the tattoo of the Erling deity on his right arm suddenly glows, manifesting a phantom of the armored god. Behind him, the heavenly eye begins to manifest, and a golden flash on Xue Xiaodao's forehead reveals a vertical eye phantom. As it slowly opens, the world around him becomes incredibly clear, revealing the movements of the 2 mutated armored lizards. Every gap in their scales, every muscle contraction, and every weakness in their bellies is captured perfectly by that divine eye. Having found their flaws, he grips his 3-pointed double-edged saber and stomps, causing the ground to shatter like a spiderweb. Xue Xiaodao launches himself like an arrow from a bow, instantly closing the distance to the side of the first armored lizard. He raises his saber high as golden light erupts from the blade, bringing down a strike meant to split the beast's armor. But as the piercing sound of clashing metal rings out, Xiaodao's expression shifts. The strike hit the gap in the armor, but it seems the hide beneath those scales was far denser than he had initially anticipated. To be perfectly honest, these creatures are proving to be much more resilient than they look. A sudden whistle of wind follows as a tail sweeps toward him. Xiaodao lets go of his blade and retreats just in time. Even a grazing blow from that massive tail sends him flying backward, where he slams heavily into an abandoned oil tanker. The tanker crumples under the impact. Xiaodao groans, wiping a trace of blood from his lip, realizing this thing is truly tough. Qin Lai watches from a distance without moving. When Jiang Xingyi looks at him with concern, he simply tells her that the boy won't die and needs to handle this himself. Xiaodao jumps down, his excitement only growing as he wipes his face. The armored lizard roars, its limbs glowing with power as its massive body charges forward like a runaway tank. Meanwhile, the second lizard flanks him from the side to cut off his escape, creating a pincer movement with 2 level 4 threats. Caught between them, Xiaodao stands his ground instead of charging blindly, the golden light of his heavenly eye burning even brighter. In his vision, the world seems to slow down. Every heavy footstep and every shifting scale is now laid bare before him. Every tensing muscle is captured with perfect clarity as the first armored lizard lunges forward, opening its massive, toothy maw. As the beast's maw opens and the stench of blood hits him, Xue Xiaodao leans back sharply to avoid the bite. He slides beneath the lizard's jaw into the shadows, his heavenly eye locking onto the third soft plate of its belly. Right there lies the heart. Xiaodao lets out a fierce roar as the Erling phantom behind him prepares to strike. Their movements sync perfectly as the saber pierces upward, the blade finally breaking through the beast's reinforced hide. It sinks deep into the lizard's gut, sending the creature into a screaming, twisting frenzy as Xiaodao holds on tight. He puts his full strength into the handle, determined to tear the first lizard wide open from the inside out. The beast's belly is ripped apart, and its massive body collapses, but Xiaodao doesn't even have a moment to breathe. The second lizard charges from behind, but instead of attacking him, it turns to deliver a devastating ramming attack. It's heading for a nearby half-collapsed storage tank, and Jiang Xingyi knows that if it explodes, the disaster will be total. Toxic gas would flood the entire industrial park, so Xiaodao looks up, the golden light of his heavenly eye surging. He slams his saber into the ground to anchor himself, while the Erling phantom behind him begins to solidify. The phantom's own golden eye opens, and 2 beams of divine light meet in midair to form a spiritual bond. We see the soul lock take hold, instantly freezing the second lizard's massive body as if it were pinned by fate. It struggles wildly, its claws digging deep trenches into the earth, but it cannot break free from the golden chains. Xiao Dao's face pales from the effort. To be honest, this technique is a massive drain on his current energy. Yet his eyes burn with a terrifying joy as he looks up with a grin, preparing for the final, decisive move. "This is the end for you," he declares, as a golden radiance pierces the dark clouds to reveal a colossal spectral weapon. It is the phantom of the three-pointed double-edged saber, manifesting with a power that shakes the very air. This spectral image looms over the battlefield, a manifestation of divine strength that leaves no room for escape. Xiao Dao pulls his weapon from the earth and delivers a final, crushing slash, the saint-slaying strike. In the very next second, the massive blade shadow in the sky comes crashing down with a thunderous, golden roar. It slashes violently onto the armored lizard's skull, shattering the thick black scales and pinning the beast to the earth. We see the ground erupt into a massive crater, sending debris flying as the golden light slowly begins to fade. The level 4 armored lizard lies motionless in the pit, while Xiao Dao drops to one knee, gasping for air. His heavenly eye slowly closes, and the totem on his arm dims, though he can't quite hide his triumphant grin. He asks Lai if that move was impressive, while we look at the massive scar carved through the factory floor. Lai admits it was decent, though the energy cost was high. Xiao Dao just laughs, because style is everything. After a long moment of recovery, he digs 2 level 4 golden cores out from the shattered skulls of the beasts. As he holds them, his Erlang Shen totem begins to pulse with heat, and the phantom of his heavenly eye flickers. It seems that after this intense battle, the bottleneck holding back his power has finally started to loosen. However, he doesn't rush to absorb them, as his energy is almost entirely depleted from using his divine techniques. To be honest, trying to force a breakthrough in this state would be more like a death wish than an upgrade. Xiao Dao stuffs the cores into his bag with a grin, telling Lai he'll save the absorption for when they're safe. Lai nods, but the peace is short-lived as a piercing screech echoes from the depths of the industrial park. A wave of dark green toxic mist surges forward as a truck-sized poison mist sow crawls out from the ruins. It moves on 8 spear-like legs, its belly spitting out a corrosive poison that melts everything in its path. Steel pipes sizzle and dissolve as the level 4 beast approaches, and Xiao Dao prepares to step forward once again. But Lai stops him, deciding this one belongs to Xingyi, who is already stepping forward with her Shantian sword. Her 9 Heavens Maiden totem is the perfect counter for this toxic energy, making this the ideal challenge for her. "Leave it to me," Xingyi says coldly, as the beast's 8 crimson eyes lock onto her with murderous intent. In the next second, the sow's abdomen swells before it exhales a massive wave of dark green toxic mist that surges forward like a tide. As the mist sweeps toward Xingyi, she doesn't retreat. Instead, her 6 wings slowly unfold as a pure white light radiates from within her. We see her activate the Mystic Maiden's Domain, a semi-transparent white field that begins to expand outward with her at the very center. The moment the toxic mist hits the domain, it begins to sizzle, being purified into harmless white smoke, though the danger is far from over. You see, the poison mist sow has more than one trick. Its 8 legs dig into the earth, and dozens of venom-soaked silks erupt from the ruins. These threads shoot out from every direction to entangle Xingyi, who slashes through the ones in front while more close in from behind. One of the silks grazes her forearm, instantly corroding her combat suit and leaving a dark, poisonous mark on her skin. Xiao Dao's expression shifts to one of pure concern, but Xingyi doesn't even turn her head to acknowledge the wound. She simply presses her hand to the injury as her 9 Heavens Maiden totem glows, forcing the toxins out of her body in an instant. Looking up at the beast, her gaze grows even colder. She realizes it isn't just spraying poison, but using the silk to lay a trap. From a distance, Lai nods in quiet approval, noting that Xingyi's combat instincts are even sharper than he had initially imagined. The sow screeches again, and the silks scattered throughout the ruins begin to glow with a ghostly green light. In just moments, the entire factory floor has become a toxic web where a single wrong step means certain death. Xingyi closes her eyes as the phantom of the 9 Heavens Maiden appears behind her, choosing to compress her domain rather than strike. By shrinking the field to a 3-meter radius, its purification power becomes absolute, incinerating any silk that dares to get close. With every step she takes, the toxic web beneath her feet is purified into a clean, white path. Her movements suddenly become illusory, like a beam of moonlight dancing through the gaps of the deadly green web. The sow's 8 eyes spin frantically, unable to track her true position, until it finally leaps into the air in a desperate move. It spits out a ball of concentrated, liquid poison that sizzles through the air with a sound that would set anyone's teeth on edge. Xingyi's eyes snap open, and her Shantian sword erupts in a blinding flash as she unleashes a devastating strike of mystic light. The pure white sword light slices the poison orb right down the middle, sending the venom crashing into the ground and melting deep pits into the earth. Meanwhile, Xingyi has already darted through the toxic rain, appearing beneath the Sao with her 6 wings unfurled and her sword held tight. We see her compress every ounce of her purification light onto the very edge of her blade, until it's the only thing shining in the world. With a sudden surge, the white light of the 9 heavens erupts upward, and the Sao's massive body is completely engulfed by the radiance. The light pierces straight through the beast, leaving its 8 legs twitching frantically as the purification energy begins to flow deep into its wounds. In an instant, the internal poison sacs are incinerated, and the Sao crashes to the ground before its toxic mist can even begin to spread. The Mystic Maiden's domain suppresses the remaining fumes, and just like that, the level 4 Sao is dead, leaving behind a dark green core. As the core rolls from the beast's skull, Xingyi picks it up, using a flash of white light to scrub away the lingering toxins. The moment she touches the core, the phantom behind her shudders, sensing the dark energy contained within that small, murky green object. It seems the 9 heavens totem instinctively rejects the poison, or perhaps it's simply holding the corruption at bay with its own light. Xingyi's aura wavers for a moment, but she decides against absorbing the energy immediately. After all, the power within a level 4 core is incredibly violent. To be honest, absorbing a core from a poison mist Sao without preparation is a recipe for disaster, likely leading to internal injury or worse. She tucks the core away and looks toward Lai, who gives a small nod, suggesting she keep it until they return to safety. Lai promises to help her filter out the corruption later, and Xingyi simply nods in agreement while Xiao Dao stands there, completely shell-shocked. Xiao Dao can't help but admit that her last strike was even more impressive than his own, though he says it with a hint of playful jealousy. Xingyi calmly puts her sword away, noting that every skill has its place, which prompts a quick, toothy grin from her companion. Lai steps forward to address them both, asking if they've realized the mistakes they made during the heat of the battle. He points out that Xiao Dao's first strike was far too reckless. By not testing the enemy's defense first, his blade ended up getting stuck. Had that tail swipe actually connected, he would have walked away with at least 3 broken ribs, a painful lesson, to be sure. Then he turns to Xingyi, warning her that she relies too much on her domain. It purifies poison, but it won't stop a physical trap. Lai explains that when facing contaminated beasts, one shouldn't just focus on the poison, but also on how the creature manipulates the battlefield. They understand. As they gather the cores, Lai warns that while low-level ones help stabilize one's power, level 3 and higher, especially level 4 cores, should never be absorbed recklessly in the heat of battle, a rule Xiao Dao questions immediately. Xiao Dao mentions his Erling Shin totem felt like it was burning, which Lai explains was merely resonance signaling a breakthrough. However, these cores contain more than just energy. They hold the beast's violent lingering will and toxic corruption. If a high-level core isn't properly purified, absorbing it can lead to a violent totem backlash or even permanent soul contamination. Xingyi looks down at the poison Sao's core, noticing that while the surface seems clean, the interior still swirls with a faint, sickly green mist. She realizes that Lai is right. The energy needs to be filtered first. To be honest, she should have expected as much. Lai promises that once they return, he will use his own methods to strip away the madness and the filth from the cores. This will leave only the purest energy for their breakthrough. Not long after, we see the team finish clearing the entire industrial park. They've collected hundreds of low-level cores and over 20 level 3 specimens. A decent haul by any standard. Among the 3 level 4 cores found, Xingyi keeps the Sao's prize, while the 2 from the armored rhinos go to Xiao Dao. It's at this moment that a video call from Lei Zhan comes through, showing him monitoring the drone footage of the area. Seeing the industrial park finally cleared, the commander lets out a long, visible sigh of relief. Lai nods, noting that he also needed to give his companions some real-world experience, a comment that leaves Lei Zhan with a wry smile. Looking at Xiao Dao and Xingyi, Lai notices their auras are far more stable and refined than when they first set out. The trip was a success. Lai tells Lei Zhan that for any future level 4 beast threats, he should simply send over the coordinates. As long as it doesn't disrupt their own schedule, they'll handle it, a message Lei Zhan promises to relay to the Dragon Commander. Once the call ends, Lai watches the black mist slowly dissipate over the horizon. This industrial park, it seems, was only the beginning. Many more death zones surround Jiangzhou, places where ordinary survivors wouldn't stand a chance. To Lai, these ruins are the perfect training ground, but he knows it isn't the time to continue the hunt just yet. Both Xiao Dao and Xingyi have reached their limits, and it's time to turn those hard-earned cores into genuine power. Back at the Blackstone base, Lai raises his right hand as the 9 dragons tattoo on his back begins to glow with heat. We see the shadow of the black coffin flicker behind him as he begins to extract the dark mist from the level 4 cores. This mist is the lingering corruption and violent will of the beasts, something that would normally be a death sentence for an ordinary person. Most would have to endure the mental strain or risk a totem backlash, but for Lai, the process is far more refined. In the presence of the 9 dragons, this toxic energy is nothing more than nourishment, and the coffin quickly devours every last impurity. With the cores now glowing with a pure light, Lai hands the 2 armored rhino specimens to Xiao Dao. He then gives the poison Sao's core to Xingyi, and Xiao Dao can't help but grin as he accepts his prize. The Erlang Shin totem on Xiao Dao's arm seems to pulse with life, and a tiny crack begins to form on his forehead. A phantom of the heavenly eye slowly opens, radiating a destructive golden light while the figure of the deity solidifies behind him. Meanwhile, Xingyi's transformation is even more breathtaking as her 9 heavens mysterious lady totem begins to process the Sao's energy. The sickly green light of the core is filtered through her spirit, transforming into wisps of pure, radiant white light. 6 wings of energy unfurl behind her as she condenses a divine sword that radiates a bone-chilling frost. Half an hour later, the air in the room shifts as both of their auras surge upward with incredible force. Xiao Dao is the first to finish, his power climbing through the ranks until he finally settles at the very peak of level 4. Xingyi isn't far behind. Her own aura stabilizing at the same peak as her divine totem becomes almost indistinguishable from reality. Overjoyed, Xiao Dao slams a fist into the alloy floor, leaving a shallow crater behind, a display of strength that surprises even him. He can hardly believe the power coursing through him, feeling as though he could take on the world right then and there. Xingyi opens her eyes with a much calmer expression, though the sharp glint in her gaze tells us everything we need to know. Xingyi is clearly pleased, as her 9 heavens mysterious lady totem's domain has expanded threefold. If they encounter large-scale toxins again, or even miasma and mental corruption, she can now maintain a safe zone, a fact that earns a satisfied nod from Lai just as a call comes in. We see a video call from Lei Zhan flicker onto the screen, and the man looks at the 3 of them with a shock he can't quite hide as he addresses Mr. Lai. He reports that the high-risk nest in the southern suburb industrial park has been cleared, which means the northern district will see its camp pressure greatly reduced. After conveying Commander Long's thanks, the call ends and Xiao Dao lets out a long, lazy stretch. He asks if they'll be heading out to hunt again tomorrow, while Lai watches the national emergency alerts constantly refreshing on the monitor. Lai calmly remarks that the area around Jiangzhou is stable for now, and that it's time to turn their attention toward the other war zones.